thanks for joining me today for episode 14 of Business in the Bedroom, a bootstrapper's guide to doing it. I'm your host, producer Jemmy, providing practical advice for the newbie entrepreneur, and today I'm going to talk to you about getting that shit in writing. This episode is brought to you by Flintstone Media. Listen in and let's do this. I'm going to take a left turn away from SEO. I know, finally, right? My poor vocal editor, Paul, must be so sick of it. Oh my goodness. Well, we're going to take a look now beyond the effort to attract new clients through SEO on the last 3 episodes and our pricing and sales discussions on episodes 9 and 10 and talk about the very next thing you should do after you close that sale. Get that shit in writing. But first, I want to take a minute to mention the Clubhouse app. It's a ridiculously powerful networking platform I'm discovering. So first, I want to say hello to all my new friends on Clubhouse. Hello. And through these connections, it's done incredible things for my business. In just the last week I've been on there. So I did a thing. I just opened up a Dreamers Become Doers Club on Clubhouse. So right now, Clubhouse is only available on Apple. So if you are an iOS user, be sure you are in the Dreamers Become Doers Club on Clubhouse. I started hosting a Dreamers Become Doers room there in order to help you turn your passion into your profit. So follow me on Clubhouse. I'm at Producer Jemmy. That's at Producer Jaime. And if in particular you are a podcaster or thinking of becoming a podcaster, a great connection I made on there, Yukai Kajidori, has asked me to help moderate a room with him every Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time on Clubhouse. It's hosted by the biggest podcast club on there, Club Pod. So I'm unbelievably honored and stoked. We'll be discussing podcast secrets, how to start, scale, and monetize every Friday at 4 p.m. So that's Podcast Secrets with Club Pod on Friday afternoons at 4 p.m. And Dreamers Become Doers, or if you go into my bio on my profile at Producer Jemmy, you'll see my rooms with days and times listed there. Okay, so moving right along to getting that shit in writing. So simply speaking, the more you get things on the record as you build your business, the better off you'll be. I repeat, the more you get things on the record as you build your business, the better off you'll be. Now, there are some things no one is too stoked about there being a record of forever and ever. Your old glamour shot photos from the early 90s, just burn those, now. Just burn those, okay? Put them in a big old pile, take a match and light them up. Same may go for your prom photos, I don't know. But that's a personal decision everyone needs to make for themselves. But do you know the Wayback machine? Do you know what that is? Well, if you don't know what that is, it's the other name for the Internet Archives. It's essentially an ongoing record of every single website. Did I just blow your mind? So you can go to the Wayback machine. I'll put the link in the show notes and see what any website looked like every time the Wayback bots captured it over time. Just go to the website, link in the show notes, enter any URL, then pick a date, and you get transported back in time to what the website used to look like. I wish I could wave a magic wand and delete all record of what FlintstoneMedia.com first looked like. But damn that Wayback machine. And now I feel the whoosh of all of you rushing over to the computer to take a look. It was not pretty. And may I remind you that in its infancy, Flintstone Media was a web services company? Yeah, there's that. Just keep in mind, I'm not perfect. This is a show about my failures and lessons learned as much as my accomplishments. So keep that in mind when you look, and then throw your head back in well-deserved, robust laughter. FlintstoneMedia.com. Circa 2015, what were you doing? So yeah, that's something that I wish just wasn't on the record. But pretty much everything else involved in the progression of my business, I've been diligent to make sure it's on the record. Now, I'm not a lawyer, But I did go to law school, which put the fear of God into me about having good contracts in place for everything. So let's you and I start off by reliving a horror story to illustrate why. So I'm the owner of Florida Podcast Network, which I call the voice of Florida. Every single episode of every show on there has the same FPM bumper on the front of it, which I personally produced. And it has my voice saying, the Florida Podcast Network, the voice of Florida, for branded content cohesion, right? And because I have a secret desire to be a voiceover artist and be in my PJs every day. Seriously, I'm a podcaster. I'm one step closer. Well, one of the now former hosts, yes, former hosts on the network, took it upon himself to pull a really dumb and selfish move. He had asked me to send him the sound bed of the opener, essentially the track without my voice on it. I don't know why, but I didn't think much of it. Even though my gut never fully trusted him, which is something I'm going to get into in a later episode, when to follow that gut instinct. It's so important to trust yourself sometimes, but whatever. I sent it. Live and learn. I know that he did his show live. So in my head, I was just assuming that he wanted it because it would make some piece of his process, firing the sounds off for the beginning of the show, easier. I don't know. I didn't think it through, but that wasn't the case. No, that wasn't the case. What he did was replace my voice saying Florida Podcast Network, the voice of Florida, with his voice saying Florida Podcast Network, the voice of Florida. Yeah, no, thank you. Now, let me take a sidebar for just a sec and explain something to you about Black women and Black people in general. There is now a frustration embedded in our DNA from our ancestors regarding our voice. Our voices are often silenced. Our identities are often erased from history or from the connection to any progressions, whether in science or education or business or whatever. Just watch the movie Hidden Figures, okay, to get a sense, a small sense, seriously, small sense of what I'm talking about. Or look into the history of slaves being stripped of their own names and being given their masters' names. This is the frustration embedded in our DNA. And that is the fury that rose up inside of me at the massive balls this jackass had in literally removing my voice as being the voice of the network that I founded and built, and replacing it with his own. Yeah, I saw you. And I heard you. I reached out to set up a chance to talk with him about it. I sent emails. I explained that it was a violation of the contract and how he needed to resolve it and blah, 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 blah. And he ignored me. And as a result, I immediately invalidated his contract, and he no longer had the benefit of having a show on my network. I cut him off with a hot knife because his insult was already egregious. But then when he wouldn't even talk to me about it and try to resolve it, yeah, that was it. Coffins on you. So I tore up our contract and shoved his ass out of my business. And he stopped using the FPN bumper on his show thereafter. Why? Because I could have absolutely sued his ass. I could have sued him for what he did. I could have nailed him bad for what he pulled. I didn't, but I could have. And that is the leverage that got him to stop. And that leverage was only there because I had put that shit in writing. Okay, are you feeling me now? So, first up, agreements should be contracts. General rule of thumb, all agreements should be represented by a contract. This applies no matter what the relationship is with that person on the other end or that business on the end otherwise. I don't care if it's your own mama, okay? Put that shit in writing. I don't know about you, but my business is my other baby. It's been my blood, sweat, and tears that built Flintstone Media and subsequently Florida Podcast Network into an entity of real value. So, like my flesh and blood son, Jordan, I need to protect my business, and you need to protect yours too. In fact, on my to-do list for this week is to put a contract together and get my brother to sign on the dotted line. I don't care, because at the end of the day, a contract is actually likely to save your relationship with someone in your personal life by keeping the rules on the business side of things super crystal clear. So my brother, Gerard, is the newest FPN host, and he's going to have to sign a contract. It's best for me, for my business, and for him too. And I want to take a second to highlight that point. A contract isn't just good to have for you. It's good to have for the person on the other end of it as well, especially if you are just starting out and don't have a robust portfolio or testimonial pool of probability. If that's the case for you, then you especially need to give the potential client some comfort. In particular, if you require payment up front too, which whether or not you have that in your business model to require payment up front will be a discussion I take a deeper dive into on a later episode. We'll just keep piling up those topics, guys. But yeah, putting everything in writing, by doing that, you are giving them, the other person who wants to potentially hire you, the confidence that if they pay you, you will complete the work. So how do you go about getting things in writing? Well, the first and most obvious means is a contract. And as you'll hear at the end of this episode, I've decided to give you a really solid answer on that as a follow-up on the next episode. But essentially, you want the deliverables included in the proposal and/or scope of work, the agreed pricing and deadlines, the consequences of breaking the contract, super important. And these have to be laid out for each party, by the way, right? In the contract, super crystal clear. But I'll get really into the details of all that on episode 15. Just remember, I'm not a lawyer. I just went to law school and have a brother who is a lawyer and is the king of contracts. His bio is also linked in the show notes. So if you have a question about contracts that you need a good, solid lawyer to ask my brother Gerard. Find his info in the show notes. But no matter what your business is, you need to at least on day one, have a solid NDA on hand for yourself. An NDA or non-disclosure agreement is necessary anytime you create a relationship where confidential business information, processes, practices, pricing, 3Ps, all that stuff needs to be shared with the other person. So for example, if you hire an employee, I'm an entrepreneurial mentor at Florida Atlantic University, and one of the things I do is participate as a business owner working with a class of students learning consulting, essentially. And each semester, my group of 3 to 4 students have to sign my NDA in order for me to feel comfortable sharing the information they need for the projects. It's simple. So have both a standard NDA and also a mutual NDA. A mutual NDA is needed if you and another business want to explore possible partnerships or other synergies. And in order to do so, you need to share proprietary information between each other. So that mutual NDA then protects you both. So you definitely want to have both types of NDAs on hand. And in the show notes, I'll include a link to good samples of each for you. So now we've come to the CYA portion of the program. Yes, it's time to make sure you cover your ass. Your clients, your partners, your vendors, everybody, they're going to ask you to do certain things in the natural course of business, especially because if you're part of the niche I'm really focusing and dialing in this show for, you're a contractor for them, Mr. or Mrs. Independent, right? So sharing credentials and other kinds of account access, for example, that kind of stuff you really want to do in writing. And that's the kind of thing that happens in the natural course of business. By the way, don't ever put credentials in an email. Period. Keeping your business secure, adding it to the pile. Keeping your business secure is another topic for another day, but just don't do it. Do not ever, I'm watching you, do not ever put credentials in an email. Or if whoever you're working with, again, vendors, clients, partners, whatever, if they want you to do something on their behalf, like handle billing and invoicing, contacting their web services provider to make changes to their web platform is another example. Maybe sharing their information, especially if it's something proprietary and would fall under that NDA that you now have, right? And you had them sign, right? Sharing that information with a third party, any of that kind of stuff, you want to make sure that you get that at least in writing via email. So if you are on the phone or in a meeting with a client and they say, oh, I really want us to double up on our order of widgets for this next event. So please contact our supplier tomorrow and tell them that we want twice as many. Great. Get that in writing. Now, it may feel really awkward about insisting on that. So here's a clever way to do it. Oh, yes, absolutely. I have a meeting right after this call, and I want to be sure I'm crystal clear on the details and handle it as soon as I'm out of that meeting. Would you mind just shooting me that info in a quick email along with anything else you want me to be sure I mention to them? Ha, you see what I did there? I put the onus on them to make sure they put the details. I gave them all the reasons why, so I don't forget anything. So I do it right away because I have another call. I don't want to be distracted. They're the priority. And also I want to make sure that I give them a chance to let me know if there's anything else they want to mention. So guess what I get in my inbox shortly thereafter? An email with all that stuff in writing. Yay! Another way to do it, instead of bringing it up on the call itself, is to send a follow-up email to them yourself to confirm the request. So a few minutes after you get off that call, shoot over an email to them and say, I'm about to call the widget company and just wanted to be 100% sure I got the request correct. And then add in the details that you already discussed, and then also add in a detail that would need to be confirmed, just so you don't sound like a forgetful idiot. So your next line could be something like, you want us to double that widget order from 500 widgets to 1,000 widgets, and that was for the ABC project this month rather than the XYZ project we're planning for next month. Is that all correct? They will be more than happy to confirm that by shooting back a quick yes email. And boom, you have covered your ass, okay? See, this is where my old minor in psychology finally pays off. Oh my goodness. So let's move on to a pet peeve of mine around this topic, okay? I can't stand when a client, I don't have many pet peeves, I really don't, but I can't stand when a client asks for something important via text message. I'm like, no, like confirming a meeting time or letting me know that they're about to send over something timely in an email is totally cool and very helpful for the course of business. Text me that. Do that. That's fine. But some clients also have a habit of sending business impacting requests via text too. No, sir or madam. Texts don't necessarily have an ongoing record, so don't rely on that. If it's something I can't comfortably put off responding for a few minutes and it's nothing critical from a time standpoint, like they don't need something right then and right there and right then and now, like especially if it's off of my normal business hours, that I'll respond some reasonable time later via email saying, hey, I got your text, ... By the way, this also goes to preserving your boundaries and mental health. I don't know about you, but I don't want my clients thinking that I'm available all the time. I have to have a life. I have to be able to separate and disconnect. And that makes me a better producer for them, a better businesswoman for them. And so you should too. And they should too, quite frankly. They shouldn't be thinking about their work all the time either. So don't be afraid. As long as it's nothing critical, don't be afraid to establish those boundaries. It's like Dr. Phil said, you teach others how to, no, let me do it to Dr. Phil. You teach others how to treat you. Okay, that was a terrible Dr. Phil, but whatever. But anyway, the reason I say that this only works if it's something you can comfortably put off for a little bit is because replying via email to a text right away is weird. Like people usually communicate back in the same way that it was put forward in the first place. So it's weird, right? So don't do that. Don't like immediately, at least, I don't know, to each his own, but that's just not for me. But if it's at least been several minutes or an hour or something like that, then replying to that request via email, go for it. Thumbs up. But if it is something sent via text that is extremely important and timely, which to be fair, may be the exact reason why they are sending it in a text instead of an email in the first place, right? Then in the least, you still want to really service your clients well, efficiently, quickly, all that stuff. But in the least, screen capture that text message, CYA. Though I'm not sure how legally binding that actually is, at least it's something, right? And at the end of the day, if it's something super important and time sensitive to your client enough to text you, then you just have to jump on it, because trying to convert that text conversation into an email exchange will likely frustrate your client. So you just have to weigh that risk out. Okay, now here's why I go ahead and asterisk myself again. If you've heard the past episodes, this is nothing new. Okay, so for my longer engagements that involve definitive timetables, a retainer for my time over a certain period, that sort of thing, I always take my advice from above. I always get a contract. But for my independent podcast clients, I do not put a contract together. Why? Well, I've gotten past the point with the volume of samples and satisfied clients and their testimonials, the number of referrals they send my way that give them their own personal, seal of approval, the portfolio shows I successfully launched, et cetera, et cetera. I no longer have to provide that comfort to potential clients for them to close with me. They get that confidence from my book of work. So I actually purposely do not lock my independent clients into a contract. My goal as a business owner, as a service provider, is to do such a great job that either one, you always want to stay with us in Flintstone Media and the whole team and me, or two, you graduate to a bigger opportunity, get picked up by a network, for example. So I don't have clients, quote unquote, sign on the dotted line, so to speak, so that they know we are always working so hard for them. That may not be a comfortable situation or a realistic situation or even a logical way for you to do your business, depending on what your business is. I'm just putting it out there for full disclosure that that's what I do for my business, because I just went on a major rant about how you have to always get that shit in writing. And then I, of course, had to say, well, there's this one time. Okay, yeah. So the next episode, I told you, I asterisk myself all the time. The next episode, I'm going to be taking a deeper dive, like I mentioned in the beginning, into what goes into a contract, which was a great idea, actually, that came from Clubhouse, specifically from the wonderful woman at Whitney DC_. Now, I've recently discovered Clubhouse, and if you aren't on there, it's an amazing networking tool, as I went on a lot about in the beginning. I've already closed sales from Clubhouse leads. That's crazy. I've only been on a week. So it's iOS and invite only, but I have some invitations and would love to share one with a great listener. So if you want to get into Clubhouse but need an invitation, just email me, Jemmy, Jaime, at flintstonemedia.com, and I'll hook you up. So Whitney from Clubhouse was moderating a room with Black women entrepreneurs, and I was listening in while prepping this episode, actually. So I raised my hand, I got up on stage, and I let them know that I was prepping this content today. And I was like, so if anyone in this room has an idea to touch upon or a question, please feel free to bring that up and I will cover it in the episode. And I told them what it was going to be about, getting that shit in writing. Well, Whitney suggested discussing the ramifications of what happens when someone violates or fails to fulfill their end of a contract. So that made me think that diving into what goes into a contract could be super helpful for you all. So you can thank Whitney for that idea. Thank you, Whitney. And that's what I'll be sharing with you on episode 15, the next episode. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you will also start following me on Clubhouse, as if I haven't said it 15,000 times already. My Clubhouse. Remember, I'm at producer Jemmy, spelled Jaime. And just like you're going to look up Dreamers Become Doers on Facebook and Patreon for all the really good stuff, you will also look up Dreamers Become Doers on Clubhouse, because that's where we get to have fun and supportive conversations in real time. Clubhouse is invite only, so if you're an Apple user, and I promise you, this is an ad. They're not paying me to say any of this. I just really have found the experience on there extraordinary. So if you're an Apple user, or if by the time you're hearing this, they've opened it up to Android, then email me for an invitation and I'll get one over to you right away. So I want to hear from you for that. I also want you to reach out and ask questions about the business you're building from your bedroom. So email me at Jemmy, that's Jaime, at flintstonemedia.com, or follow me on social media at Flintstone Media on all the things, and DM me. And if you have anything to add here or to argue with me about, or if you want to ask a question, like seriously, if you found yourself screaming in your head or outwardly while listening to this episode, if you want to put me in my place about anything, I'm open to it. So, or if you just want to ask a question, I can do that too. So you can actually have your voice featured right here on the show. Head to the show's website, bizinthebedroom.com, hit the button and record your message. So again, that's bizinthebedroom.com. Alrighty, that's it for today. Tune in next time for a deeper dive into what goes into a contract. Remember to hit it hard, keep the lights on.